Welcome to the 48th Annual Fredericton Chamber of Commerce State of the Province Address with Premier Blaine Higgs. I'm Krista Ross, CEO of the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce. To begin our show this evening, Jill Stairs, our first Vice President, will be interviewing a number of elected officials. I'm passing the mic to you, Jill.
Good evening and welcome to the 2022 State of the Province pre-show on Rogers TV, brought to you by the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce. My name is Jill Stairs. I am the first Vice President of the Chamber Board and co-chair of the Government Affairs Committee. In my day job, I'm an accountant in public practice in a local firm called Allain Associates. We have 5 great guests lined up for you tonight, and at the end of the show, we're going to cut right to the live broadcast. So without further ado, let's get to it. So I'm welcoming Minister Dorothy Shepherd, the Minister of Health for the province of New Brunswick, as my next guest. Welcome, Minister Shepherd.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight and offering your perspective on New Brunswick today. You released your primary healthcare reform document in November. What early successes can you share with us from that?
Probably one of the most notably is the one-at-a-time therapy for mental health and addictions from our mental health and addictions plan. And in many communities, we have taken the wait lift for mental health services and eliminated it. And if not eliminated it, we've brought it down very low, like we've cut it by 56 or 60%. And that's exciting because I've always maintained, the department has always maintained, our professionals have said that if we can reach people when they need a lower acuity of care, and keep them from escalating, we're going to have more successes. And so I think we're proving that out. And also that means that we take the wait list for higher acuity care at psychiatry and psychologists, and we're able to manage that. So over a bit of time, we're going to see those lists come down too. I'm very excited about that.
Definitely good news.
Yeah.
As you know, New Brunswick has an older population, and demographically speaking, the older you get, the more expensive healthcare becomes.
Yes.
Is your government seeking new funding from the federal government to address that demographic?
Certainly the Premier has made it clear that we want federal health transfers to increase, and we just received a bump last week, a one-time bump that they've called it. So we'll be continuing on our efforts to increase our health transfers, but we're also looking to ways to allow seniors to remain in their homes for as long as possible, as long as they can. I think that's why we bolstered our home care salaries and made investments in special care homes so that we can make aging as graceful as possible and keep a quality of life that our seniors want.
Thank you. Physician recruitment. So
Yes.
Back in April of 2021, you stated that your 100% goal was to give every New Brunswicker a primary caregiver.
Yes.
Within 6 months.
Yes.
We're now almost a year from that declaration.
Yeah.
Your department has released the first steps of the primary care plan. But the wait list for primary care physicians is only going up.
Yes.
What is your plan to address that and to try to meet that objective of primary care for every New Brunswicker?
Yeah, it's got 2 or 3 folds to it. And I think first I can tell you that that we recognize that those who have been on the wait list for family physicians, our primary care provider, it's an important part of their life. We the sooner we can be taking care of people, the more we can prevent serious illness going into the future. So primary care is pivotal. And so we have launched the nurse practitioner clinics, which has made an improvement. We have a good number of family physicians in our province, probably more per capita than almost any other province. But doctors are practicing differently. So when one doctor leaves, we can't expect that one doctor is going to come in to take that practice over. And that's where multidisciplinary practices need to come together. So with a nurse practitioner, a family physician, an RN, dietitians, pharmacists, we need that collaborative care model that we're working on. And then the primary care network, which will give access to everyone waiting for a permanent family physician access to primary care. And to me, that's cooking with gas. It has taken some extra time. We're putting the IT in place now. And so that's going to be transformational to our healthcare system.
Thank you so much. I really hope that you enjoy the event tonight.
I'm really looking forward to it, and it's a great budget. We've all made some gains, and I think the people of New Brunswick, will benefit from it.
Thank you again.
Nice to be here.
That was Minister Dorothy Shepherd for the Health Department of New Brunswick. Thank you. So I'm welcoming Minister Dunn to the show tonight. She has the portfolio of Immigration, Opportunities New Brunswick, Economic Development, and Aboriginal Affairs, so a very large portfolio. So welcome, Minister Dunn, and thank you very much for joining us and offering your perspective from your vast portfolio of departments. The first question that I have for you tonight is the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce has advocated that the government of New Brunswick create an immigration ombud, or a similar type of position to help newcomer Canadians navigate the system in New Brunswick. Is there any thought being given to this idea within your department?
We actually haven't thought about creating an ombud position. However, we do have a navigator position that we're looking at currently, which will essentially work like business navigators, where we served over 5,000 clients last year with a 97% satisfaction rate. So we think the same concept could actually work very well with immigration as well, just so folks understand how to navigate the system and to help with the paperwork and to have that one-on-one client customer relationship to navigate through the questions and any challenges that they have. So that's something that we're looking at doing absolutely right away. So hopefully we'll have it done within the next, I'd say, month or two, but that is something that's in the works.
That's great news.
Thank
you. My next question, what's the government of New Brunswick's commitment to cybersecurity in New Brunswick, especially now with the disbanding of CyberNB? If an association is formed within the sector, will the government work with and or support such an association?
Absolutely, and I think that's a great question. I mean, we are right now poised to be a global leader with respect to cybersecurity. So back in 2017, 7 entities came together through government as well as business and academia, and they signed an MOU with the understanding that they were going to build on that capacity for cyber in the province. And we're actually the only province in Atlantic Canada that belongs to the National Cybersecurity Consortium. And as you may have heard recently, UMB secured $80 million from the federal government, and they're going to be part of that group that's going to be leading the country on cyber. So absolutely, we're poised to be a global leader. There's huge opportunity here. We have a number of private sector companies who have now moved to the province. We have Boucheron, we have IBM, Deloitte, and I could go on and on in terms of the numbers that have come here, but this is a massive opportunity, huge potential around work opportunities, particularly working from home opportunities as well, and great opportunities for newcomers. Right now we have hundreds of jobs. People are working in the IT sector and cybersecurity sector, and thousands on the horizon. And the good thing is we have about 400 students that are actually graduating annually from our universities, and about 5,000 in the Francophone and Anglophone system that are currently taking different aspects of IT and cybersecurity. So we're well positioned.
Thank you. As the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, what do you see as the key priority on behalf of government in this portfolio?
I would say the key priority in terms of Aboriginal affairs is really building that relationship. Relationships are built on trust, and trust takes some time. And it's baby steps is what it is. And I'm proud to say that we're doing a lot of work right now. We're working very ardently on the TRC calls to action to make sure that we are responsible and implementing the ones that the provincial government is responsible for working on and implementing. We've done a significant amount of work on 27 out of the 31 recommendations and calls to action, which I think is very promising. I would say also that cultural aspect and understanding where First Nations are coming from and their historical perspectives is very important. So just recently, myself and the Premier and a number of ministers participated in a blanket exercise, which I think was life-changing for a number of folks. And that kind of stuff makes a big difference in terms of building that trust and that relationship. And also from a financial and economic perspective, First Nations need to be at the table. If this province is going to succeed, they have to be part of that equation. And I'm proud to say that recently ANBL actually started their first on-reserve agency store at Elsipogtog. It is a pilot project, but we're hoping to build on that opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Dunn, for your time. And I really look forward to seeing you at the main event tonight.
Oh, thank you so much. You're doing a wonderful job, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is David Coon, the leader of the Green Party of New Brunswick. Thanks, David, for being here tonight.
Thanks for the invitation.
We look forward to hearing your perspective from a New Brunswick point of view on the state of the province. What are your expectations for this evening?
Well, that's a good question. I think the Premier will speak about the budget primarily because that's mostly what he's been talking about in the legislature. As you know, we're sitting right now, and so I expect that'll be top of mind for him. And he'll be profiling the parts of the budget that he thinks are most important.
If you were in the Premier's shoes tonight, what would be the biggest issue that you would focus on in your state of the province? Well,
I think, unfortunately, there's more than one. You know, we've gone through a couple of tough years, and a lot of small business are struggling with the impacts of the pandemic, which we're still feeling, of course. And it's certainly, you reminded us that we're a tough bunch. We've got real stubborn courage as New Brunswickers, but there's people suffering and there's businesses who are struggling. So that needs to be addressed, you know, and in a practical way. So you look at things like our healthcare system, and COVID has really revealed how brittle it is. I think many people were shocked to find that, you know, the care they were looking for, whether it was surgery or tests that they needed, got delayed and continue to get delayed so significantly. It's very worrisome, or the long wait times in the ER, or wait times in the ER. So certainly, I would be talking about, you know, what the problems are in the healthcare system and how to fix them. Absolutely, how to fix them. How we ensure that people can access healthcare when they need it. In things like family-based, team-based family practices, which means funding nurses and nurse practitioners, physicians' assistants to be part of a practice with a physician, so that they can cover the patients through the week, and so you can get in to see somebody on the team within a day or so. And it would help immensely if our doctors were relieved from their hospital responsibilities, which is an obligation that doesn't exist in other provinces. And that really takes their efforts away from their patients. So the province is going to be hiring some more hospitalists, so those specialists whose specialty is to care for those who are in hospitals. But not enough to relieve our doctors of that obligation, and that's where we have to get to.
Thank you for that. What are your suggestions or innovative solutions for growing New Brunswick's economy?
Well, certainly we're in the midst of a transition globally towards a greener economy because of the climate crisis and the need to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. Become much more efficient in the way we use energy, ensure that there are good alternatives for getting around that don't depend on conventional vehicles. So tremendous opportunities there in terms of, if you just think about electricity, the recent Clean Energy Roadmap that was released by the 4 provinces and the federal government for our region found that a combination of building the Atlantic Loop to bring in electricity from renewable hydroelectricity sources in Quebec and Labrador, coupled with growing our domestic generation of renewable energy in New Brunswick, whether it's expanding hydro at Grand Falls or expanding wind and solar with storage, provide tremendous opportunities, as do things like biogas and renewable natural gas from which is being tapped into in Quebec and British Columbia. And I guess what I would say is the transition is begun, but we're kind of falling behind on that because the Premier doesn't seem to see the sense of urgency that needs to be brought to making that transition to the future that we need to get to, where we get off ultimately off of fossil fuels, and where we and do so in a way that is fair and just. But you need to plan for that. So we need to do it by design and not be forced into it by disaster. If we do it by design this decade, tremendous opportunities will be available in New Brunswick for people and communities and businesses if we if we push it off until the next decade, then it's going to be forced on us, and we'll miss out on those opportunities, and will not be the way we should. Will not be fair. Will not be just.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have some questions prepared for you. It's not formal. We'll just kind of go along with whatever you have to say. My first question for you is, what are your expectations from the State of the Province address this evening? Do you anticipate any surprises?
Well, normally the State of the Province is actually that. It's the state of the province. And you always expect the Premier of the day to state what is actually going on in the province, certainly from an economic development point of view and from a fiscal point of view, but also from a social point of view. I think it's important that needs to be addressed. And I expect the Premier will certainly talk about the good things that that's happening in the province. And I think people that will be listening, or even there, obviously, will expect that to be said by the Premier. But I think it's also important that the Premier states what's not as rosy in the province, because there's always challenges in society where it needs to be addressed. And things, from a population growth perspective, we've reached the 800,000 number, which is great. But how can we get to 1 million in the province of New Brunswick? How can we keep growing the economy and everyone in our province can benefit from it? And I hope that the Premier will address some of the issues around the shortage of our healthcare workers, our nurses, addresses the issue around rent control, because there's a challenge there. And we see a lot of investments from outside coming to New Brunswick and buying these properties, but they're buying it at a higher value of the local market, and it's certainly putting a lot of pressure on the rent and the people that are paying rent. How that could be addressed, but it is the state of the province, and for as much as we all want to hear good news, and it's important, we also want to hear what needs to be addressed, because there's still challenges in our province.
Great, thank you. So if you were in the Premier's shoes tonight, what would you mostly focus on when it comes to the challenges?
Yeah, well, if I'd be speaking tonight as the Premier, I would certainly put a lot of focus on growth. I've always believed, and I still do, that we have to outgrow our financial liabilities. And that's through economic growth, population growth, but always wanting to do this in a way that, like I've mentioned, everybody can benefit from. There's nobody left behind, which it's not always easy, but as a government, as a province, you need to promote and encourage and put the right conditions for economic growth, but you also have to have an approach for social issues. Listen, the Premier will certainly talk tonight about how much the debt level of the province has gone down. We all want to see that. We all want to pay our bills, and we all want to pay our debts. If you have a mortgage, you need to pay your debt. But you don't pay your mortgage, for example, all at the same time. You need to live. Mm-hmm. You need to pay the groceries. You need to pay your rent. You need to be able to afford some of the daily necessities that New Brunswickers needs. So there needs to be a balance about how much you put on the debt, from my perspective, but also you cannot forget that there are social issues that needs to be addressed in our province. A good, healthy social society is good for the economy. A good healthcare system where it's not only well funded, but we have the adequate human resources is good for the economy, because people are healthier. So again, the positive things, but also the challenges that needs to be addressed is something that I would talk about if I'd be on that stage tonight.
Thank you. You actually hit on almost every policy priority of the Chamber. It's like you came prepared.
I didn't know what they were, so I guess I'm glad that I know what the Chamber, well, obviously what the Chamber is reflecting, what your members are telling you.
Well, we are the voice of business.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you at the event tonight.
You're welcome.
I'd like to welcome Minister Allain, the Minister of Local Government and Local Governance Reform is what we're going to be talking about tonight. So welcome, Minister Allain.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you so much for joining us and offering your views on today's New Brunswick. How would you characterize the progress being made with local governance reform?
I think it's going pretty good, actually. As you know, we started the whole process last year, January 2021. We launched it. We were working in a local governance structure which has been there for 60 years. We've been talking about it for 25, so we launched it. Is it easy? No, it's not. But local government, everybody knows in New Brunswick that we had to move forward because we're not doing it for the people here today, we're doing it for the next generation. So we're putting the building blocks, and that's why we did consultation for a whole year in 2021. We did a green paper, we did a what you've heard document, we have a white paper, and now finally we finalized the boundaries and the council compositions. Now we're looking at names of these entities and communities. We're moving forward with staff by the 1st of September, and we have a special election on the 28th of November, 2022. So it's a whole pack of 2 years of reforms, and we're moving forward, and it's great. And I think, is it tough in some areas? Yes, it is. However, change is not easy. We have to work in partnership. We have to collaborate. But I'm sure that we'll definitely attain our goal.
Awesome, thank you. So what do you expect the biggest benefits from this process to be?
Je crois que merci pour la question, Jill.
Thank you for the question.
Les gros bénéfices, c'est
The
qu'on va
major
trouver
advantages,
l'efficacité
we find
dans le
efficiency
système.
within the
Tout de suite,
system.
on a besoin de
Already,
mieux
we do
collaborer
need
aussi
to
entre les
better
communautés. On a
collaborate
besoin de réduire
between
la duplication.
communities
C'est pour cette raison-là
and
qu'on vote l'avant
reduce
avec une réforme. On vit d'une réforme qui
the-
est là depuis 60 ans.
This
Le
reform
premier ministre
has
Louis
been
Jean-Michel a fait un grand
discussed
pas d'avant avec
the
le
past
programme de
60
chancelière.
years
Et on veut le continuer
with equal
aussi.
opportunities.
Mais d'autres facettes qu'on
There
peut
are
trouver. Puis
different
je crois
ways that we
qu'avec
could find, I
l'opportunité
think, with
de
this
travailler sur la
opportunity
structure,
on the structure, on working on collaboration in the regions, better planning, and also better taxation system. Those are benefits that we will be able to see with this reform that we've been discussing in the past year anyway, and will become with the special election that will be held November 28, 2022. And there will be then a better government machinery and better partnership with the provincial government and also municipalities and in the rural areas.
Groups, including the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce, have advocated for municipal voting rights for permanent residents, and that was included in your green paper for local governance reform. What are the next steps to actually achieve that?
So first of all, we value immigration. We value our new neighbors coming to New Brunswick. That's number one. You have to recognize that permanent residents play a role in our society today, and I think they should have access to our democratic possibilities also. And it's important that they make decisions with us at the same time. So the next step is to work with elections in Brunswick. That's number one. As you know, permanent residents across Canada, we would be the first province in Canada to move forward with this file. So it's important that we work with elections in New Brunswick, that we make sure that the voting lists are definitely worked on that. We'll have to bring some legislation in. So I hope to work with our opposition parties and the Multicultural Association to see the definition of a permanent residence. And however, it comes bigger than this. And I think that's the opportunity that these new Canadians want to be part of our New Brunswick economy, our New Brunswick society, and that's why we have to move forward on this. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do it for the special election in 2022. However, we'll have a roadmap for the general election in 2026, and I hope that we figure about 30,000 people, permanent residents in New Brunswick, will have access to municipal government and to the ability to vote on municipal governments in 2026.
Thank you. I hope to see you at the main event tonight,
Definitely we will there.
and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jill.
Again, that was Minister Allain of Local Government. That's all the time we have for this evening. Thank you for joining us for the State of the Province pre-show on Rogers TV, brought to you by the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce. Also, thank you to all our guests for joining us. We appreciate your time and insights. I would now like to introduce the current president of the Chamber Board, Jeff Saunders, who is a partner with Teed Saunders Doyle here in Fredericton, and he'll kick off tonight's proceedings live from the Convention Centre. Jeff, over to you.
And a horse, it's like these round grass balls. Why is that? They said, I don't know. I said, you want to talk nuclear power, but you don't know shit? We're good to go. Et maintenant,
And now,
je suis ravi.
I'm truly
Please
happy,
welcome
pleasure.
to the stage
Veuillez
the CEO of the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce, sorry, not the CEO, the President of the Chamber of Commerce, Jeff Saunders, to say a few words. Jeff is a partner at Teed Saunders and Doyle. Jeff, if you would.
Thank you and good evening and welcome to the 48th Annual Fredericton Chamber of Commerce State of the Province Address with Premier Blaine Higgs. We are now welcoming the live television audience via our sponsors, Rogers TV New Brunswick. Those viewers at home just saw our pre-show. A big thank you to host Jill Stairs, the Chamber's first VP and a partner at Day Kelly & Associates. Also, a big thank you to the guests in the pre-show, Minister Dorothy Shepherd, Minister Arlene Dunn, Minister Daniel Allain, Liberal Party of New Brunswick Interim Leader Roger Melanson, and Green Party of New Brunswick Leader David Coon. Thank you all so much for participating in the pre-show that was just seen at home. Now, I want to particularly thank each and every one of you for attending this evening. For many of us, this is the first big event that we've had of this nature in quite some time, and isn't it great to finally be out and see people face to face again? I also want to thank our great sponsors that make this event possible, like Fredericton's own Robert Siemens Clothing that provided my suit for tonight. And finally, a special thank you to my predecessors and fellow pandemic chamber presidents, Karen Grant and Bob Chisholm. Bob, in particular, had a year as president with all the work of being president and none of the perks like getting to speak to you all this evening. So thank you for everything you guys did for the chamber. I'm not going to take up much of your time this evening, but I would like to recognize the uniqueness of the moment in time that we find ourselves in right now in the province and the opportunities that lay ahead. I'm an accountant by day, and I've spoken to clients in every sector of the economy, and it's been a really difficult 2 years for many of them. I've been there for some very dark moments of hardworking entrepreneurs, but what I've come away with is a sense of hope and confidence in the future. To be able to witness time and again the remarkable ability for businesses and individuals to adapt, survive, and thrive under these extraordinary conditions has been a privilege and an inspiration. That spirit, combined with the province's improved financial position, have the makings of a prosperous future for us all. That doesn't mean that recovery is going to be like flipping a switch on. Everything wasn't fixed on March 14th when the mandatory order was lifted. We have the same big issues that we had pre-pandemic: workforce, housing, access to primary care, to name a few. At the same time, we've learned a lot during these last 2 years, and we can use that experience to deploy it going forward and help us in the future. We've learned that government can move quickly and decisively. We've learned that the private sector can adapt and evolve, And we've learned that our community members are willing to step up and support local businesses like never before. We've also learned that we can do things differently, but just as effectively and perhaps even more so. So let's continue thinking differently and collectively. We all roll our eyes these days at the phrase, but it does feel like we are truly on the cusp of a new normal. There's still time to decide what that new normal looks like, so let's choose wisely. I'd like to take a few moments right now to publicly acknowledge this evening's corporate sponsors once again. Please hold your applause until everyone has been recognized. Our platinum sponsor, Siemens Canada. Our gold sponsors, Emera New Brunswick and Rogers TV. Our wine sponsor, the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists of New Brunswick. Silver sponsors, Bell Alliant, Porter O'Brien, and Stuart McKelvey. Private reception sponsor, the New Brunswick Medical Society. The venue sponsor, the Fredericton Convention Centre. The NB Table of Honor, ARC Clean Energy. The Young Entrepreneur Table sponsor, the Ginger Agency. The New Brunswick Small Business Table sponsor, Opportunities New Brunswick. And our bronze sponsors, the Association of CBDCs, Delta Fredericton, Exclusive Events, the Fredericton International Airport Authority, Forest NB, Kears Marketing, New Brunswick Real Estate Association, Rob Blanchard Photography, Robert Simmons, Signature Sound, and Rocket Inc. Please join me in thanking these generous sponsors. Now, at this time, it is my honor to introduce Mr. Faisal Kazi, CEO of Siemens Canada.
Climate change is real, and it's encouraging to see that our global leaders have made commitments to a greener and a sustainable future. Now, this is the first step, and in my humble opinion, the easiest one. Now we all need to work together to deliver on these commitments, and New Brunswick is playing a role. Bonsoir, Honorable Premier Minister Higgs, Ministre,
Good evening, distinguished guests,
it's a great
ladies and
pleasure
gentlemen.
for me to be here tonight. It's the 10th consecutive time someone from Siemens has stood at this podium. It's my 5th time as the President and CEO of Siemens Canada. And I'm sure you must be wondering, why is Siemens again? The fact of the matter is that Siemens, as a company whose lifeblood is innovation, we simply just can't stay away from New Brunswick. Everywhere we see, there is innovation, there is collaboration, there are ecosystems working to solve challenges with a purpose. Siemens Canada had the pleasure of being the technical sponsor for City of Fredericton's Boost Innovation Camp. And in this competition, the participants were provided two things: a connection to 5G and access to municipal data. And they were asked to find solutions in the field of infrastructure and emergency response. Now, imagine you are an emergency respondent and you've been sent to a site of an accident. So once you come there, the first step is to estimate what's the situation, assess the situation. So you have to see what is the magnitude of the accident, how many people are involved, how many people are critical, who is most critical, are the bystanders endangered, is the infrastructure like a hydro pole intact. Once you have this information, you start to respond. And wouldn't it be amazing if you would have this information quicker? Or, in fact, you could have this communication, this information before you reach the site. And this is exactly the challenge which Fog Cutter, the winner of this week-long competition, tackled. Isn't that absolutely amazing? And that is one of the reasons we can't stay away from New Brunswick. So now, most of you know us from our Center of Competence on Smart Grid and also our Research Center on Cybersecurity. But our other business, Siemens Healthineers, is a leader when it comes to healthcare technologies. Siemens Healthineers, digitalization can significantly improve the utilization and maintenance of healthcare equipment. It can improve patient data. It can fast-track the time from diagnosis to treatment. But most importantly, it has the potential to conquer diseases like cancer. So Siemens Healthineers' $16.4 billion acquisition of the company Varian is about combining state-of-the-art technology with specialized cancer care to hopefully one day have a world free of cancer. So we are now working with the newly formed McKenna Institute of Technology and University of New Brunswick on healthcare processes to improve those. And I must say, McKenna Institute of Digitalization is a great collaborator to be in this space because digitalization and data analytics have the potential to improve healthcare outcomes for New Brunswickers and beyond. Now, coming back to climate change. Energy transition is one of the biggest levers we all have in the fight against climate change, as the demand of electricity is increasing and will continue to increase as we electrify the transportation sector. So that makes energy transition the #1 priority when it comes to the fight against climate change. So most of you know we have been working together with our partners, New Brunswick Power and Nova Scotia Power, on the Smart Grid Atlantic project. And I'm very happy to say that despite the challenges we faced with through COVID, we have made good progress. So now in the town of Shediac, 400 households are connected and participating in the pilot, the Smart Grid pilot. The largest solar installation in New Brunswick is being commissioned, and this is going to supply clean energy to the multipurpose center in Shediac, and also the Government of Canada Pension Center, and bringing these two buildings on the path to net zero. And I'd like to actually, at this point, take the opportunity to thank the innovative people of the city of Shediac, because thank you for being part of this journey in the creation of the grid of the future. And I'd encourage, if you meet somebody who's participating in these pilots, talk to them and share their experiences. I encourage everyone to start joining the smart grid. So in North Branch near Moncton, the first 20 net zero homes are under construction. And these homes will be able to operate independent of the grid and in fact also share their power within the community. So it's like a potluck party where you bring your own food and you share with others, and vice versa. So similar projects are successfully underway in Nova Scotia by Nova Scotia Power. And I'm very happy to announce that the platforms, the digital platforms, which are supposed to connect all these distributed energy resources and optimize the overall system have already been developed, are in operation. And once the pilots have completed and we have the ability to ramp them up, they have the potential not only to solve energy transition for New Brunswick or Atlantic Canada, but for the world. The Smart Grid Innovation Network, which was formed in 2016, Siemens was a founding member, has in the meantime become a test bed when it comes to the development of smart grid technologies and systems. 40 regional companies have participated and benefit from this center since its inception. So these are things which are the reasons that we cannot stay away from New Brunswick. So now, as digitalization is changing our lives, and we are getting more and more connected with the Internet of Things, cybersecurity attacks are also on the rise. And I would like you to think, all of you here, how many devices you as a person, as an individual, or as a household, have you connected, different devices, to the Internet of Things? You have a smartphone. Does your smartphone connect with your car? So if that happens, the car connects with the Internet of Things. Do you have a smart TV? Just reflect on that. And actually, I would like to do a poll to say how many, if you could raise your hands and say if you have 5 devices, then say I have 5, or if you have 6 like this, or 10, or more than 10, then I would blink like this. So, and just keep your hands up so we can just get an idea how many devices everybody has, yeah? Oh my God, yeah. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? So that's a lot, man. That's a lot. So there is an estimation that by 2025, 55 billion devices will be connected to the Internet of Things. That is 7 devices for every human on this planet. And that's a lot. Now this internet connectivity, where I'm coming to, is rapidly moving to the industry as the 4th industrial revolution unfolds. So now Interpol's assessment is that the focus of cybersecurity attacks is moving from individuals and small businesses to large corporations, to governments, and in fact, to the critical infrastructure. Now imagine you are driving your car back home from work, imagine that, and you are coming to an intersection and the signal is green on both sides. These are the kind of repercussions a cyber attack on critical infrastructure could have. So what are we doing about it? I'm happy to announce today that we are going to strengthen our presence when it comes to cybersecurity in Fredericton. In fact, today was a very special day where we inaugurated our critical infrastructure defense center. It's the first of its kind for us, at least Siemens, in North America, a defense center which will purely focus on critical infrastructure. And we are, thank you. We had a discussion with the Premier 2 years ago, and he had encouraged me to go into the Cyber Center, so I'm happy to say that we were the first tenants of the Cyber Center. Thank you. Yeah. So now I would like to make sure that everyone understands that cybersecurity is a challenge which no one company, even if it's as big as Siemens, can tackle on its own. And we have to all work together. That reminds me of an African proverb which says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And this is exactly what is needed when it comes to cybersecurity. We all have to work together. We are happy that the ecosystem in New Brunswick is here. So that's what we need to do. We all have to work together all the time to tackle this. So with this, I just want to take this opportunity. I think we have achieved a lot despite COVID. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank our partners, the Atlantic Business Community, New Brunswick Power, Nova Scotia Power, St. John's Energy, Opportunity New Brunswick, University of New Brunswick, and the list can go on and on. Thank you so much for the collaboration, for the teamwork. We are really solving here some of the biggest challenges which humanity is facing right here in Fredericton. Thank you, and thank you. So now it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Honorable Premier Blaine Higgs. Blaine Higgs, a member of the Legislative Assembly for Quispamsis, was born in Woodstock, New Brunswick. He graduated from the University of New Brunswick with a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering. In 1993, he completed the Executive Management Training Program at Queen's University. He has also taken courses in finance in 2003 and Leadership and Influence at Babson Executive Training and Education in 2006. Immediately following university, Mr. Higgs joined Irving Oil Limited in St. John, New Brunswick, where he held numerous positions of increasing responsibility in engineering, refining, operation, and in the transportation sector. Prior to his retirement in May 2010, he was Director of Logistics and Distribution with overall responsibility for the transportation and bulk storage requirements for reliable supply of refined products to customers throughout Eastern Canada, but also New England. He was a member of the Irving team negotiating the Repsol on the Canaport LNG project. He served on the boards of directors of Canaport LNG and the New Brunswick Gateway Council. First elected to the Legislative Assembly on September 27, 2010, he represents the riding of Quispamsis. On October 12, 2010, he was sworn in as Minister of Finance, Minister responsible for the New Brunswick Liquor Corporation, for the New Brunswick Investment Management Corporation, Minister responsible for the New Brunswick Lotteries and Gaming Corporation, and Chair of the Board of Management. He also served as the Minister of Human Resources until October 9, 2012. Mr. Higgs was re-elected to the Legislative Assembly on September 22, 2014 as MLA for Quispamsis. In 2016, he was elected leader of the Progressive Conservative Party. On September 24, 2018, was elected for the third term as the MLA for Quispamsis. On November 9, 2018, he formed the first minority government in 100 years and became the 34th Premier of New Brunswick. On September 14, 2020, Premier Higgs was elected for a fourth term and the first Premier since Premier Bernard Lord to secure a second mandate from the people of New Brunswick. He has traveled extensively for business and pleasure. The insights learned through his interactions with different cultures provided him with a real appreciation for the challenges that New Brunswick faces in the global economy. Mr. Higgs has been a resident of Quispamsis for over 40 years, a long-standing member of Kennebecasis Baptist Church. He's married to Marsha. They were married in 1978 and have 4 daughters, Lindsay, Laura, married to Reed Gilmore, Sarah, married to Jeff Wilkinson, and Rachel, married to Matthew Hills. They are also blessed with 4 grandchildren, Nadia, Alexander, Samuel, and Sadie. They all enjoy spending time in the country and pursuing many outdoor activities such as swimming, boating, skiing, snowmobiling, and fishing. Please help me in welcoming Premier Minister Higgs.
Mesdames et messieurs, accueillons notre Premier ministre,
Ladies and gentlemen, our Premier, Honorable
the Honorable Blaine Higgs.
Well, thank you very much, but I'm not sure why the video cut short. There's a lot of good information there. Can we replay that? They just crank it right up. Now you know why I wanted you to see it all. It's a great time to be in New Brunswick, and there's some great people that put this together within the civil service, and I want their work to be well seen because there's a lot of great information, a lot of things happening, and it's an exciting time to be in New Brunswick. Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. Firstly, I want to start off just talking about the great food we had tonight. I met Chef Ryan, and he said, you know, I haven't done any big events for a while. I'm a little concerned. I said, don't be concerned. That beef was amazing. So a great meal. Thanks. And I see we have NBC students that were servers, amongst others. So thank you very much. Great meal. So, you know, a little concerned about the mask thing, but I saw Dr. Russell roaming around without a mask, so I said, I'm good then. We're safe, because I just follow Dr. Russell wherever she goes. You know, I heard Dr. McMillan talking a little earlier this evening, and he was saying, you know, it's really great to finally remove the masks and see those smiling faces. Well, you know, that might work for a doctor, but for a politician, the faces don't always smile so much. So I know, I guess you got to be where you are in this scenario. But I just say it's great to be here tonight. It's great to have an opening event and see so many faces and see so many people in person. You know, the attendance last year wasn't that great, and I guess the polls must be up. But anyway, we're working through a lot of things in this province, and it is very, very exciting. I want to thank people again, I say, for joining us. I want to thank so many people that have come here tonight and taken the time. And thank you
to the people of New Brunswick for having shown up for the province and your commitment in our success. for the team.
How blessed are we to be in this beautiful and peaceful province. As we gather here tonight, we think of those. Our issues, our differences pale, absolutely pale in comparison to what we're seeing in Europe. The devastation, as we gather here tonight, millions in Ukraine are fighting just to survive. It's extremely hard to watch this happening somewhere in this universe. We are seeing families torn apart. I know that all of you, your thoughts are with Ukrainians as are ours. And we're all praying for peace and stability. And we're doing what we can in any way we can to help people find refuge, whether it be short-term or whether it be long-term. In the weeks and months ahead, we'll be welcoming many Ukrainians, and I know we'll help them find comfort. We'll help them rebuild. You know, we have this teleprompter, seems to be working just great, but just in case, I brought a few notes. This is what we do as New Brunswickers. We practiced this in our own home during the pandemic, in our own province during the pandemic. This is how we work with each other. We can keep this rolling now. Shelby, remember I said I'd call out your name. It's who we are in this province. It's what we do. We've been seeing in the strong character that we've had and we built in this province of time in New Brunswick. And again, throughout the pandemic, we've worked hard together. This month, our province moved to more open phase after 2 years of grappling with COVID. And while many people were not happy, you know, thinking, oh, well, is it too soon? Is it not too soon? People were getting frustrated. They were having anxiety. They wanted to get back and open. And it was a balancing act which we struggled with, working with the public health, working with the minister, working with the teams in the system to understand what can we do, when can we do it next, and can we do it safely. And we've had great advice throughout this pandemic, and I'm proud of everyone that I've worked with and how diligently they've worked to deliver for this province.
I know that it was frustrating and difficult over the past years.
And it was certainly heartbreaking for many, many New Brunswickers who lost loved ones, many who experienced deaths during the pandemic. My mother died during the pandemic, and we had a very, very small funeral, as many would also have had. She didn't die of COVID. She was 100 years old, so I was blessed to have my mom for a long time. But things were so different, not to be able to see people in hospital, not to be able to attend for grieving, and not to be able to protect people as we would like to. But through it all, we've come out of this. We've come out of it with greater compassion and perseverance. While we continue to live with COVID, we are finding ways to move forward and to build on the successes we've achieved together. And that is exactly what I want to talk about tonight. And that is exactly why I wanted to see you the list of all the things. It's not about just talking about doing something, it's about actually doing something. And that's what's exciting, is working with a team that's getting it done. It's the success of our people, success for our children, and the success we will continue to see as a province when more and more people from all over the world call New Brunswick home. Maybe once again, maybe for the first time. Tonight's address comes on the heels of government's budget, which many across the country are applauding, including all of the major banks, national child care experts, retailers, and the tourism industry, associations to name just a few. We did what some consider impossible. Nous avons augmenté les services.
We've increased services. We've reduced the tax burden for New Brunswickers. And we have protected future generations from repeated deficits and new ill-placed debts.
Posted surpluses every year since we took office, and we paid down the debt by nearly $1 billion. And people will say, well, that was federal money. Well, let me say this. Every dime of the federal money during the pandemic, $2.3 billion of it went right out across this province to help everyone in this province survive through COVID, and we thank the federal government for it. In addition, we spent $330 million, but it was all what's needed during the pandemic, and we did it where it was needed and when it was needed, and we were proud to be there for people when they needed it. And I know it's been rough. It's been rough for many industries, particularly accommodation and tourism. I'm very proud, though, of what we were able to accomplish and the way being responsible with tax dollars has allowed us to put a budget together like you've recently seen. I want to thank the people in finance, the Minister of Finance, and the work that's done in order to do what we must. It's easy to think of government as a machine, but it's not a machine. It's 55,000 people strong. And in reality, government is made up of people, and I can tell you that we've got some of the hardest working people and the most talented people in the public service of any government in any province. And I know many people think, well, I'm difficult. But I'm not difficult. I have to keep telling people that. I hate to have to keep telling that, mind you, but the idea is certainly, I just want to see us get better. I mean, when I go home at night, I think about, okay, what could we do today that was better and bigger and we're moving forward? And you know what we realized as a team, and I'm so proud of all of my team, my caucus, my ministers in caucus, and obviously the 2 new members, so thanks everyone. We've got a stronger team. But you know what? We realized we're better together. We're better with a team that includes the 55,000 strong employees. And I know there have been rough moments and tough conversations, but they went above and beyond the call of duty over the last 2 years. The team's led by our Chief Operating Officer, Cheryl Hansen. And you know, you hear about Dr. Russell, and you hear about myself and the Minister of Health, and we're out, you know, kind of being in public and that sort of thing, but then you hear the unsung heroes that are working 24/7 behind the scenes. Whether it be in terms of the COO, whether it be in terms of the deputies in government, being the deputies in health, or the people that are taking the tests, doing the lab tests, doing the contact tracing through all this. But the countless hours that are put in that no one knows about or thinks about, but it's all happening. And what I'm most proud about is my colleagues recognize that, you know what, we're stronger together. Coming in at the very beginning, we said, you know, we can come in with a government that has all kinds of ideas, or we can try to create even more potential and ideas by working with people that have been in the system and know the system. And I'm proud of every one of my ministers and working with their departments and what they've done to tap the energy that's in the system to help us be a better New Brunswick, a better province. So in addition, you know, putting countless hours and weekends, leading a team through COVID, we've had individuals that have also kept the rest of government running to provide services where they're needed on the routine business. The leadership has been tireless. I also want to thank, as I said, the ministers in our caucus. C'est le prendre de vrais leaders pour bâtir une équipe.
Great leadership to build a team. I'm very proud of each one of you and also for the work you've done with your departments to obtain results.
Our deputy ministers, CEOs, and the entire teams are passionate, and every day they're building a culture that demands better. And that's what we want, demanding better for our customers, the people, the citizens of this province. It's not too much to ask. It's what we believe in, and it's what we want to deliver. I also must recognize my lovely wife. You know, so I often referred to events like this when my wife and I were out as date night. We haven't been on a date for 2 years. So it's a good thing we're getting beyond this pandemic thing so we can get back at it, so to speak. so, I love you, darling. All right, I'll probably take something for that later, won't I? That's why my daughter had to leave. She didn't know what I was going to say. Actually, my daughter had to leave because she has a 5-month-old and a 3-year-old, but the 5-month-old is a little more demanding right now. So she had to leave. We are a team. My wife and I are a team. I'm surrounded by teams, but I couldn't do this without her continuous support. I mean, she loves these retirement years. She thinks it's really working out. And we have some very intimate conversations about this at different times. I would like to ask, though, however, because I have team members all through the audience, You know, people in my colleagues in caucus, people in the departments, but many are here tonight. And I would just like you to stand and be recognized, because I know a lot of people aren't here tonight. I'm assuming most of my caucus are here tonight. But I just want you to see the people that have been working through this COVID experience. So if you could, just ask my colleagues, caucus, including the new members and deputy ministers, CEOs that are here, just of government. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much. And the team in the office that, you know, work on unreasonable hours in order to get the job done. Thanks to each and every one of you. Ensemble, nous avons une stratégie.
Together, we have a strategy. Together, we are focused, and together we have maintained discipline, even during a worldwide pandemic. And now, we're experiencing the fruits of this endeavor.
Real success in this province, with healthcare, with child welfare, with our economy, and we intend to build on that success in the weeks, months, and years to come. I am more confident than ever that we are emerging stronger than we've ever been as a province, and this after a pandemic has been in our province for over 2 years, and we're still dealing with it. Together, we are building a province that will be known as the best place to live and raise a family in Canada. We likely will have to put tolls on the border just to keep control of things, because people are coming. But it's exciting, exciting time. It's a place where our sons and our daughters won't have to leave to go elsewhere to get a job. That just reminds me, when I started wandering off there, they didn't turn this thing on. I bet somebody was telling me that. A place that becomes a destination for young people who want affordable living, an excellent career with opportunities, and access to quality health care and education. And most important, with all of that, they want a lifestyle, a place that's quiet, a place for nature, a place that values the values that we have and known for years. And now the secret's out. Il s'agit là de ce que nous poursuivons.
We will continue.
Alors, tout semble indiquer que nous sommes sur le bon voie.
We are on the right path.
Brunswick is becoming the land of opportunity. Suddenly, a few years ago, maybe several years ago, we saw in the provincial, I think a federal paper, national paper, talked about whatever New Brunswick's doing, do the opposite. And then not long ago, we said, suddenly, the Have-Not province has it all. Well, we've known that all along. But as it's now becoming more and more widespread. Our economy is recovering faster than expected. Last week, the Bank of Montreal recognized our strong population growth as our speedy vaccine rollout that helped us weather the pandemic. Scotiabank said we have a concrete plan to cautiously boost spending while maintaining balance. And the Royal Bank said that New Brunswick has plenty of success to build on. We certainly do.
Private investment is increasing. Now that we are in government, we have committed ourselves to present a favorable program for growth. This has created a culture that leads for businesses to want to invest.
We built navigator programs to help investors cut through red tape. I've said here to different folks tonight, and I mean this most sincerely, if there is a particular issue that you just can't seem to get government to understand what it really is like in the business world, then I want to know about it. Real things, not a list of things, but a real things. Or I don't mind a list if they're clear. And we need to say, okay, this is a problem, because I love fixing things. And the way to fix it is to know about it. So many people aren't shy, so I don't know if I dare say don't be shy, but nevertheless, I'd like to know. We reversed the negative credit rating outlook to restore our province's reputation. And every credit rating agency is looking at us in New Brunswick. And I've had a discussion with the first one, and they're really impressed with the direction New Brunswick is heading. We've protected small business from harmful taxes, and we've lowered WorkSafe premiums, and we're going to lower them again this year. The program is working. And you know what's really exciting is that even though I could have stood here and said, well, you know, there's been a pandemic for 2 years, and so it kind of put us all off track. But you know what? We didn't use that as an excuse, although it is a significant one. We used it as a springboard to be better. Creating a concept in government like 1GNB, which meant it didn't matter what department you were in. If you were needed on the front line, or if you were needed to contact trace, or if you were needed on a special project, you moved in to make that happen. And all of our departments would work together. And our ministers would work together to say, okay, how do we fix a problem? How do we develop solutions that are real? Last year alone, over $2 billion was invested by private firms in capital construction and machinery and equipment. Statistics Canada is predicting that capital investment from both public and private investments will exceed $4 billion this year. This momentum is being realized right across the province with new facilities and job growth, as you can see from this map. In Tracadie-Shala, Elsipogtog First Nations owned McGraw Seafood began construction on a $20 million processing plant to expand into the European market. Walmart, that's right. There's more. There's a lot more. Walmart is investing $56 million in a new facility in Moncton, which will create 200 new jobs. Dealer Mine will add close to 230 new jobs in the St. John region, with Millennium One Solutions bringing 150 new employees to Edmonton. In November, employment hit an all-time high. Since January alone, we've seen Deloitte bring 200 jobs to the province, Marshall, Canada, another 65, and Uni Financial just announced 99 more. Nous sommes chanceux d'avoir un grand
We are really
coopérative
fortunate to have a great cooperative financial cooperation with the Uni, with their headquarters in Caracal. They're contributing to the vitality and growth of the province.
Construction is booming, but we're challenged to find people, and we know that. We're working hard on the immigration file to get more people into the province, more skilled people, more people directly related to the jobs that are here. In 2021, a transformative multi-year project for waterfront development was renewed. Another project, this was in St. John, was announced in Fundiki with a $300 million investment, mostly private sector. The modernization of the Port of St. John is another example of an important development for our entire province. CP Rail has returned to the port, expanding market access worldwide and creating competition where it's needed. Multi-unit construction set a record in 2020 that had stood since 1972, and then we beat it again last year. Things are booming in New Brunswick, and it's an exciting time to be here. Another key indicator that we watch would be exports. Last year, our economy showed the second fastest growth in the nation in exports. Seafood exports reached an all-time high, reporting more than $2.2 billion. That's right. Boosting productivity through technology is a priority our government identified in 2019 when we unveiled our new economic strategy. Given the labor challenges, particularly in the seafood processing, we partnered with the federal government to support over 50 automation projects in the seafood processing sector. Great stuff. Aimant Gagnon Limité, our Grand Barachois, a vu sa productivité.
Saw productivity increased by 77% after 2 seasons by modernizing its new plant.
In this year's budget, we provided $5 million to help more New Brunswickers businesses embrace technology for greater productivity and increased outputs. Internet connectivity has been a key to our competitiveness. In 2020, we signed a $40 million agreement with the federal government to expand rural internet, and we're on track to connect more homes and businesses by 2024. We currently have the best availability in Atlantic Canada, and we are 5th best in all of Canada. Good news. But as demands increase, we must improve service quality. Our team is right now finalizing a digital strategy with a goal of faster services in rural New Brunswick, better cellular coverage, and supporting our transformation for e-health and online education. Population growth. Our population strategy is taking hold too. In fact, well beyond what any expectations would have been. Our province is seeing the highest population gains in 45 years and the fourth highest growth in all of Canada. It's exciting. You know, I get excited, and I'm an engineer. So just imagine how non-engineers get so excited. I know if there's a lot of accountants in the room, you can control yourselves too. I understand that. The mitigation interprovinciale
Interprovincial migration hasn't never been so high in more than 40 years for international migration. We are now establishing records in international.
We welcome more than 8,400 newcomers from other countries. Our teams have exceeded all immigration targets, including those for skilled trades, Francophone newcomers, and international student nominations. In fact, last year we reached over 1,000 nominations for international students, which is almost triple the number from 2 years ago. But we know we can do better, and we know we will do better. To that end, I am pleased to share that ONB will be launching an immigration navigator service in the weeks ahead to become more agile for employers and newcomers so we can connect more closely to the needs. But just last week, we surpassed 800,000 people, which is an exciting milestone for our province. How long have we been saying 750,000 people? I did it just the other day. I said, oh, we got about 700. No, we don't. We got 800,000. So everybody say it. 800,000 strong. It doesn't just mean more people to fill jobs. It means more money for better schools, better health, better education. I'm proud that when our government sets a goal, we remain focused to achieve it. That is evident in our turnaround of Cannabis New Brunswick. We will hit $16 million in profit this year. Who knew there were that many weed smokers here in this? Which is, they were in hiding before this. In any event, significant improvement from a $12 million loss just a few years ago. We are also seeing continued momentum in key sectors. Cybersecurity has long been a growth area for our province. The industry is strong, with a cluster of companies enjoying over 700 people in Fredericton alone. And it was great to listen to Fazel this evening talking about the commitment that Siemens has and the investment that they're putting forward. And you know, it seems like when we have these events, often Fazel says, well, I'm going to announce something at a State of the Province event. And because I'm keen on watching his pattern. So I'm thinking we should have these about every 3 months. Just to keep him focused right here in New Brunswick. But he was very clear about his focus in New Brunswick. And thank you so much, Fazel Kessi. Just last month, the National Consortium, co-led by UNB, received $80 million in funding. That's right.
These funds will be used in the province of New Brunswick to reinforce our economy, more so. Local businesses serving clients throughout the world will help them solve many issues in cybersecurity.
In fact, Beauceron is doubling their workforce over the next 2 years and counts 2 Fortune 500 banks among their impressive client list. Great work. IBM has chosen New Brunswick have hundreds of other corporations because the brain trust is here and growing. And just this morning, as Fazel talked about, Siemens opened their North American Defense Center right here in Fredericton. And congratulations again. Digital literacy is critical to our economic and social progress. That's why our government supported the new McKinney Institute with $10 million. It will double the number of commuter grads, triple graduate students, and offer micro-credentials to help New Brunswickers gain technical skills to re-enter the workforce after the pandemic. Energy innovation is another priority for our province. We have a strong commitment to play a leadership role nationally and to ensure Canada is recognized as a global emissions reduction leader. Nuclear energy is a key resource in the transition to a low-carbon future, and we're well positioned to lead this evolution. We are one of only 2 provinces in all of Canada with nuclear expertise, and we're working to reach a pan-Canadian solution with SMRs, a technology much different than the typical CANDU reactors. And people need to learn more about this solution that can be a game changer, not only for New Brunswick, but for Canada, for the world, and we can play a strategic role in it. This new technology is more advanced design, smaller and modular, which makes them much easier to build and at a lower cost than a full-scale nuclear facility. Et bien entendu, la technologie
and yes, this technology is safe. New Brunswick is on the forefront of this type of development.
2 SMR leaders have their Canadian headquarters right here in New Brunswick, Moltex and ARC, and we're glad to have them here as leading edge for the future of our province in energy. Both have received support from our government that is taking hold through growth in high-quality jobs, important university research activities, new curriculum at the community college, and the development of the supply chain that they will allow New Brunswickers, manufacturers, to be part of and to trade and to participate in this emerging market, to be part of the supply chain. This is a real emerging potential for us. And now I have to just talk a bit about what our opportunity is through the transition. With what we see going on in the world, it's the transition economy that we're trying to work through. There is no reason with a country like Canada, with the resources that we have, that we are being held hostage by a country like Russia. And we need to be part of that solution. And we can be, because we have to bring energy security to our allies. But we want to continue to see prosperity right across this province. Our communities must remain vibrant, sustainable, and be safe places that are capable of attracting and retaining talent. They must also be inclusive. We are proud to have appointed Canada's first Commissioner of Systemic Racism, Manju Varma, and she's here tonight. Thank you, Manju. And we're working hard to build a new relationship with our First Nations communities, nation to nation. We are not proud of the history. We are not proud at all. But we must find ways to collectively move together to build a stronger New Brunswick. I recently participated in a blanket exercise and believe it is critical to learn about our past and how we can change our future. Ce n'est pas un travail simple.
This is not an easy task. It's not easy at all.
Mais nous sommes absolument
But we are entirely focused to open a new path with new social economic opportunities for all.
We are seeing progress on the workforce, development and revenue, generational opportunities, such as last week's announcement of a First Nations agency store pilot program that is being launched by ANBL in a partnership with Elsipogto. I'm glad you all got a chance to eat first. There are many other opportunities under discussion that are progressing through regular meetings and that we are having with the chiefs, myself and ministers. We must also put a gender lens on our policies. Budget 21-22 was the first time a gender impact statement was released with a budget, and we're proud of it. It was expanded this year, and we hold a distinction as the only province to release one so far. Good news. Changes we've outlined are setting the stage to continue. And there I am, stopped. I gotta get my notes out, Shelby. Yeah, it's locked up. Yeah, here's my notes. Local guy, where are we? Yeah, we're moving. Got to go back some. There we are. See, I had backup. Local government reform has also been a key priority. Changes we've outlined are setting the stage to empower communities. We've reduced entities from 340 to 77 local governments and 12 rural districts. This is to support more collaboration, improve representation, and to avoid duplication. And you know when the first report was done by Jean-Guy Finn? 2008. Taken 14 years to get on with it. But I'm proud to say we got on with it. And there's more things to get on with. Thank you, Minister. We are encouraging neighboring communities to work together in shared goals and coordinate investments. Recently, our government introduced new funding to support regional workforce development efforts. We've already signed an agreement with Envision in Greater St. John for $10 million over 10 years. Cabinet has approved a similar agreement with Ignite for Fredericton. We want to see these partnerships take hold right across the province, from northern New Brunswick to Moncton and everywhere in between. This is good. We are interested in partnering with regions on tangible performance-based outcomes to strengthen our communities and make them magnets for talent and investment. Nous savons aussi que le logement est absolument
know that housing is essential to create dynamic communities where people can grow.
I'm very pleased that with our budget we've delivered on a promise to reducing the provincial property tax on non-owner occupied residential properties. Starting this year, these changes will be phased in over 3 years, and once fully implemented, will represent a tax reduction of $112 million. For New Brunswickers, we will deliver a 50% provincial property tax rate reduction for apartment buildings and other rental properties. On top of that, other residential properties like nursing homes will see a 15% reduction, and every non-residential property will also see a 50% reduction. Great news for the taxpayer. We've also put in place protections for tenants' rights, as well as a one-year rental cap to assist during these times of high inflation and sharp market demand. And we've invested over $6 million to help grow our stock of affordable housing in this year alone. But it is a struggle. It's hard to keep up. When you get this many people moving into the province, you just can't build fast enough. But it's a good problem to have, and we want more people to build, and that's why the tax reduction was to help with that. Furthermore, through Opportunities New Brunswick, we're providing loan guarantees to stimulate workforce housing opportunities in rural New Brunswick. This is critical, since we are seeing that 25% of our newcomers are settling in areas outside of the 3 major centres to fill labour needs. There is absolutely no question that we are serious about working with our rural employers to address our housing challenges. When it comes to affordability, our government is taking a number of steps to help families who need it most. We've raised the minimum wage from last in Canada to being on par with our surrounding provinces. There's no reason that people here in this province shouldn't have equal wages to other provinces, and we can keep up. We've also made improvements to our social assistance programs to help clients keep more money while they're transitioning to work, and to allow them to share housing accommodations without being penalized, which is significant for single moms, for example, who can now share costs, transportation, and even take a night shift at work if needed, and know someone is at home to look after the kids. These changes will help lift people out of poverty and off the system. Our new child care agreement is another way we are making everyday costs more affordable for families. I know I was criticized earlier this year for taking too long to sign an agreement, but we held out to get the right deal for New Brunswick families and to protect our private sector operators. You know, it's not about the headline, we got an agreement. It's about what the agreement actually says. And as a result, national child care experts have said that our program has risen to become one of the top ones in the country because we took the time to do it right. We will create 3,400 new spaces, and by this time next year, fees will be cut in half for families to an average price of $14 per day. And we're going to help operators with the cost of the increases in hourly wages of early childhood educators as well. By managing responsibly, we can also put more money into healthcare. Nous avons publié notre plan d'action de l'automne dernier. Le plan trace en marche à suivre.
It outlines an aggressive but necessary path forward to stabilize and rebuild New Brunswick's health care system.
For too long, it has been fragmented and frustrating to navigate. That is starting to change with a more customer-focused, accessible, accountable, and inclusive program. During COVID, the minister was online night after night talking with communities all over the province. So we're seeing the results. We're seeing the change with a more citizen-focused, accessible, accountable, and inclusive approach. We're appointed to a task force to oversee the implementation of our action plan and to make sure there's arm's length oversight, regular reporting, and transparency. Our budget has allocated over $3 billion to our healthcare system, with an increase that is the largest since 2008. $38 million of it will support our action plan, which is focused on boosting access to primary health care surgeries, addiction and mental health supports, and to support seniors, all the while creating a more modern and connected system. We are delivering improvements. Over the last 2 years, during a pandemic, we've opened 3 new nurse practitioner clinics, and when fully deployed, will offer 18,000 New Brunswickers access to primary care. We significantly reduced hip and knee surgery wait times, resulting in a 50% reduction in the number of people waiting longer than a year. That's 800 surgeries. We've expanded the role of pharmacists so they can treat more ailments and alleviate pressure in our emergency rooms and primary care offices. We're committed to a new state-of-the-art public health lab, which will be a central hub capable of conducting timely and advanced testing. And we've introduced more options to give access to people who are having issues getting timely appointments with their primary care providers. Over the last 3 months, this has made over 11,000 new in-person and virtual primary care visits possible for those who needed them. Perhaps one of the most important successes comes from the learnings around mental health and addiction. But I want to say, in the case of healthcare and us improving healthcare services, it's about the services that you feel each and every day. And you know, we can all say, oh, I want more money. But what we need is innovation in the system to do more with what we have. Because we are competing with every province in this country. And we know how difficult that is. And we know how hard it is to get more people. So let's be more innovative. Let's do what we're seeing in the technology world. Let's deliver results with a different way of looking at that delivery model. And that's what we're doing, and with the oversight to see that it gets done. Not that it's a headline, not that it's an announcement, that you actually feel it when you go looking for healthcare in New Brunswick. Within the mental health world, one of the most important successes from the learnings around mental health and addictions, our government introduced rapid access through walk-in or appointments. We call it one-at-a-time therapy, and it was rolled out across the province. It has reduced the provincial wait list by 58%. This represents almost 1,000 individuals who urgently needed and received these life-changing services there when they needed it. We are also expanding recruitment. In this budget, we've allocated funding to hire more nurse practitioners, other professionals, and administrative support to create more capacity for non-urgent care within our communities. Right now, we're working with our municipal partners in Sussex and Dalhousie to attract doctors to turnkey, multidisciplinary clinics, and we'll be targeting more communities across the province to develop this model. Furthermore, we are attracting more international nurses. Prior to 2020, there were only 10 international nurses who became registered in New Brunswick over a 5-year period. Since January of 2020, we've added 152 international nurses. We are increasing our targets, and by 2024, we will recruit up to 280 international nurses a year who will then be able to work and bridge to a full license. This is progress, and we work together to achieve it, not just talk about it. Marcia often tells me I need to be softer. And I'm working on that. I really am working on that. But I do get excited about seeing results and seeing things happen for the people that I love in this province, the people that are passionate about a better New Brunswick. So speaking of progress, at a recent Atlantic Premiers Conference, there was an unprecedented willingness to collaborate on solutions for certification, capacity issues, and other major challenges in healthcare. I want to recognize the Université de Moncton and UNB, who are helping us address our nursing shortage and recently signed a 10-year performance-based agreement to graduate 84 more nurses a year. That means when they graduate, the university gets paid. We are also focused on recruiting and retaining caregivers to help our most vulnerable. We provided over $38 million this year to increase wages for human service workers, including home support, community residents, special care homes, family support group homes, and attendant care. Now let's turn to education. In education, we want a province where every student can reach their full potential in literacy, their full potential in math, their full potential in languages, computer skills, and career experiences. We must help our students be the best they possibly can be. We've created opportunities and improving standards, like with our laptop subsidy program that is helping students again this year. Nous avons aussi mis 60 cours.
We've also put 60 more courses online, including all compulsory courses for graduation. Many are offered over the summer months to give opportunities to students for accelerated learning and to better connect the rural students to more course options. Nous concentrons également sur les expériences d'apprentissage personnalisées en créant des partenariats dans des secteurs clés tels que la santé et l'énergie.
To offer students hands-on learning through co-op placements and workplace visits. And we're covering the full cost of tuition associated with advanced certifications for qualifying grade 12 students to expose them to careers in long-term care facilities and to careers for early childhood education. We all know highly skilled tradespeople are in high demand in New Brunswick. Through our partnership with industry, we developed a mobile welding unit that is traveling to schools across the province, go to where they are to promote the trades. We've also focused on making sure every child will graduate with a conversational French capability in English and French, their second language skills, which will open doors for young people in all parts of our province, all parts of a bilingual province that we want to be equal and fair to all and be cherished by all. We're focused on making sure every child will graduate with the conversational French and English capabilities. Over the last year, we've been empowering educators in a dozen schools to remove barriers and implement community-based approaches for French second language learning. We're building on the success of that program by expanding it up to another 40 schools and 12 early learning sites. Our teachers are improving too through a new innovative language proficiency institute where almost 100 teachers across the province are strengthening their French language skills. At the same time, we've added educators who are supporting English acquisition for newcomers. Presque 2000 nouveaux arrivants.
And almost many new arrivals have registered, 2,000 new arrivals have registered for our schools. Each of them should have the possibility of succeeding in New Brunswick and to build a future in the province.
We are rethinking the fundamentals right across the board and challenging our teams to revolutionize education so that New Brunswick students can be their absolute best. You know what? In New Brunswick, people want to be here. They want to raise their kids here, and they want to experience our rich and vast resources. I am very proud that our government has committed to more than double the amount of conserved and protected areas in New Brunswick to 10%, which is indeed historic, the most significant conservation gain ever in this province. People in this room probably think the forest isn't managed and it's just being logged. But when in fact, we have the best managed forest in Canada. We are unique because we're the only province that has both a thriving forestry sector and a growing wood supply. That is because we grow every year more wood than we cut. And in the coming months, you will see us introduce more steps to maintain important biodiversity, protect waterways, and to ensure abundant wildlife and fish habitats. You will see historic changes to private woodlot management to better assist landowners in the stewardship of their lands. Grâce à nous, il y a un
Thanks to us, there is a balance in our forest. We believe our forests are for everyone and meant to be enjoyed just like our parks, our beaches, and our trails.
During the pandemic, many New Brunswickers rediscovered our beautiful province. Our Explore NB Travel Incentive Program encouraged staycations and boosted our tourism industry at a time when it is needed more than ever. Over 50,000 applicants took advantage of this incentive and received more than $5 million in rebates, which generated more than $20 million in spending across the province. Now that is success driven by our tourism department. The tourism industry employs between 30 and 40,000 New Brunswickers and contributes an estimated $520 million to our provincial economy each and every year. We need to keep it strong and growing. Maintenant que les frontières
Now that the borders are open once again, we are dreaming big. We want to build New Brunswick the top vacation destination in Atlantic Canada, a place that is a constant draw for visitors from all over the world.
Travelers want New Brunswick has to offer open space, outdoor adventure, and amazing seafood, music, festivals, and rich history. New Brunswick has it all and more. We have warm saltwater beaches along the Acadian coast. We've got a Fundy Trail that will be fully open. And in fact, there's no reason to go beyond New Brunswick. You can save gas because you can do it all in New Brunswick. So for now, be in New Brunswick. This is as far as you need to go. All we have. Now, when I'm with my Atlantic colleagues, and I'm telling them that, they aren't real impressed. But we have friendly competition. And we will have a New Brunswick Museum in St. John that we can all be proud of. A New Brunswick Museum that shows the rich historic culture of our province as far back as the generations will allow, so we can look at just how rich we are as a province, how rich our history, our traditions, and our values that we have grown from, and how we expand and we grow together beyond. This year, we're going to be telling the world that we're ready to welcome them with open arms. But it starts with each one of you. One person tells one person, tells one person. And we're launching a new campaign next week, targeting New Brunswick to encourage them to share their experience and invite friends and family to discover the great things that New Brunswick has to offer. Tonight, you've each been given a park pass. Now, if you didn't get it, it's inside the book. So did everyone get it? Inside the book. So So, no excuse. Use it, invite guests, enjoy and promote our rivers, our trails, and our parks. Snap some pictures, tell the world about New Brunswick. We need you to help to extend the invitation to those near and far. Nous savons que lorsqu'elles
We know that when they'll live the experience of all that we have to offer, they will want to stay longer and maybe even stay for a lifetime.
Together, we are growing. Together, we're building on successes we've seen over the last 2 years. We've been tested, and New Brunswick has delivered. We can continue to deliver. I've gone through the budget primarily talking about the different programs that are put in place, programs that we've invested more in delivering than any other previous budget, and at the same time, reducing taxes and balancing the budget. We not only have a province that has it all, we have a budget that has it all, and we can have it all together as we build this province together stronger and forever. So, I want to thank each and every one of you tonight for staying and listening to all of this and not getting up and walking out. You know, you can have a short speech with very little in it and lots of emotion, or you can have a speech that tells the facts about a growing, strengthening New Brunswick that we're all proud to be part of. And I hope when you leave here tonight, you're all going to be thinking, yes, I can invite somebody, but yes, I can do something to help this province. Because that's what it needs. Every day, everywhere, we think about what's my part in making New Brunswick stronger. We're all doing the best we can, and we all can do better with what we have, and take pride in what we have, and be humble about it, because we truly are a blessed province. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you, Krista, for the invitation.
Wow. Thank you so much. Merci, Premier Ministre Higgs,
Thank you,
les
Premier
bonnes
Higgs,
nouvelles.
for the good news.
Not lost on me, of course, as New Brunswick is so much better at selling dope. It's not often you get the munchies by watching a speech, but we really enjoyed that. And I don't know about you, I'm proud to live in a province where I can stand in a suit like this and not get slapped in the face. Merci beaucoup. Bonne
Thank you very
we'll
much.
see you next year.
Drive safely.
Thank you, the Chamber.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the State of the Province Address. Tonight, we have gathered for the 48th Annual Fredericton Chamber of Commerce State of the Province, in person this year rather than virtual. I'm Krista Ross, CEO of the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to say thanks again to our sponsors for this evening, especially our platinum sponsor, Siemens. I'd also like to thank, of course, Premier Higgs for speaking to us this evening, to those who are gathered and to those at home. I want to ask you the first question. If you had to say in one or two sentences, what is the state of the province on March 31st, 2022, after 2 years of a global pandemic? How would you describe it?
It's an exciting time to be living in New Brunswick. I think people are recognizing the value that we have here in not only our lifestyle, but in the potential to raise and live here and work here in this province, raise a family here. We've seen unprecedented growth in population, just hitting 800,000, and in investments. So that brings challenges, but people are finding our province, I think, for the first time in many ways, or realizing just how great it is.
So I want to start out this evening by asking you a few questions related to the economy and inflation and a number of other things, but I'm going to start first with a couple of questions about COVID recovery. It's been a couple of weeks since New Brunswick ended the COVID-19 mandatory order. Have there been surprises for you in the early days?
Not in relation to what we've seen for cases or activities. Our goal was always, can we manage this in the hospitals? Probably it's the reactions that we see in different levels, because you have people on both sides, whether we open or we don't open, and it came down to many people getting to a point that, well, I'm tired of this. I'm not going to follow the rules like I once did. We just need to see us get our lives back. So we were at a point with vaccinations that the public health were recommending that, that needs to continue to be a focus, but we can make that work, and people just continue to get vaccinated, and our hospitals can continue to manage. And people look after their situations individually, but we also respect one's ability to wear a mask or do whatever precautions they need. But we're in an opening process here. But generally, I think things are unfolding as we thought. I mean, across the country, we're seeing the same thing. Mm-hmm. People are opening up, and I got to say, through all of this, our hospitals have managed to deal with the situation.
in-house, like we've done it here in New Brunswick. We've never been in a position that we've had to get outside help for dealing with the COVID cases.
So you have had some negative feedback on the speed of reopening and the speed of dropping all the restrictions at the same time. Given that that's comparable to what's taking place in other jurisdictions, how do you respond to that response?
Well, throughout the entire pandemic, we followed the recommendations of public health, and they do analysis based on the risk, based on the profile for vaccinations, based on what's going on around them, and they recommend whether we can move to the next level or whether we can't. When we set up the program for phasing the 1, 2, and 3 winter program, it was basically reaching given thresholds of are we able to move to the next phase. And then when Omicron came and the symptoms were less severe than the previous variants, it added to the fact that, yeah, it's really transmissible, but it doesn't have the same impact, and especially in a highly vaccinated population or in a vulnerable population. So public health, we're comfortable, and obviously it's not a political decision. It's one that's based on science, and it's one that we've had our moments, but we've followed throughout the entire pandemic, and for the most part, I think it's certainly been successful, and so we're sticking with the team that got us here.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you a question that is related to economic recovery. The Department of Tourism last week saw a 26% increase to their funding in the budget. And given that the sector is expecting to take years to return to their pre-pandemic levels, and they are a key piece of the provincial economy, are you prepared to continue to provide increased support to the hardest hit sector in coming years?
Well, throughout the entire pandemic, what we did was look at businesses that were impacted the most. And yes, the combination of the tourism sector were hit the hardest, I would suggest. But that's why we put in the rebate program in order to get people moving throughout our province. It's kind of ironic that you got to pay people to go around and look at their own province, but it really paid off in spades. And when I say that, it paid off with people understanding just what a province we have. And then I think the word of mouth started to spread about your relatives in Ontario and said, wow, you should have been around to see this. So yeah, we will continue to monitor the activity, and our tourism focus is advertising more about the province, getting our message out there, and so people want to come as a destination. We've been too long considered as a province that you go through to get somewhere else, and what we are promoting is, no, you really don't need to go anywhere else. And in fact, in today's environment where you really want to reduce your fuel consumption, why would you drive further?
Good point. We often talk about differentiating between government spending and government investing. What's your view? What makes a government investment? What investments do you plan to make during your mandate to aid in the economic recovery?
Well, interestingly enough, government has always felt like it needed to be the generator of wealth. In other words, just keep building things to create employment. So it's not like it's a sustainable path. It's like it's just, I just keep spending taxpayer dollars in order to build something and keep people employed. And I could go through here numerous examples of where we've basically shifted that philosophy, and now we see a private sector investing and with an order book that's growing. And so the philosophy for us is that how do we focus on helping companies get bigger and stronger? And coming out of COVID, a lot of it was related to, can we reach further markets for companies that are already there? Can we help them automate and have greater production levels? And certainly we're seeing that in many categories where companies have grown their market share. They've diversified because of COVID, but then realized the potential. And so our goal has not been trying to just say, can I give a grant? Can I do this? It's been, can I find a better economic environment? And that's where the tax side of it, the continuity of policy, the trying to remove barriers for whether we get more people here or the regulations, so that we can actually focus on the things that make it difficult for businesses to work here and live here. And judging by what we're seeing for private sector investment in the province, I would say that's really starting to catch on.
Okay, good. So New Brunswick was the only province in Canada to produce a budget surplus in the last 2 budgets, and that gives you options when it comes to how to budget. Given what you just said about investments, are there situations where you would sacrifice a budget surplus to make a good investment?
Well, yes, I would say that if I see a return on that, it's no different than a company borrowing money to say, look, I need more capital in order to expand my business, and I see a 5-year payout or a 10-year payout. And I could point to examples on that too, where we've actually looked at a vision. I could actually go to an example that was back when I was in finance, talking about, let's say, improving activities at our ports. Because it was like there's a long-term view here where we can get cargo development and we can start to see things move forward. So yes, but it's a business model that has a return on investment. Nothing different than you would know about and your members would expect. But that's not been the tradition. So I do kind of go against tradition in that regard, because I believe that taxpayers should get a return on their investment. So whether it is a commercial one to have more jobs and see a return, government should see their return come back, or whether it's investment in healthcare or education, whatever, you should see a return on that in terms of the results. And to me, the announcement's not about how much money did I spend, it's about what did I get. And someone shouldn't even care in the sense that, oh, well, you spent 10 million here. They should care that 10 million got real results.
So you know that gas and oil prices are at record highs, not just in the province but across the country, and it has been reported that you've spoken to the federal government about holding off on the carbon tax increase tomorrow. But that is little more than 1% of the price of gas currently. So a group of 8 chambers of commerce wrote to you and asked you to take more dramatic action to help businesses and households to mitigate those costs. Are you prepared to take any direct action to mitigate those crushing costs?
Well, I in fact have been trying, and we did have that agreement across the country with my colleagues. And the immediate issue would have been, can we move just pause the carbon tax for a period of time in the 11 cents a litre. We have transposed the money that we bring in on the taxes right into this budget. So when we look at our healthcare spending, you mentioned tourism, but you look at education, you look at social development, right across the board, this is probably the largest budget that the province has had, and the largest certainly increase in healthcare, probably for at least 10, 12 years, maybe 15 years. So it goes to the point of, okay, I have put this money right back out into the system. And I know there's many people that will think about, oh, well, you have surplus, but you would understand that the surplus that we have on an $11 billion budget doesn't necessarily amount to any great deal. And on that, the nuance of trying to say, are we able to manage within that? We had surpluses during COVID because we saw a combination of things. There were some real surprises. We saw a return in HST that was triple what we thought it would be, because spending in 2020-21 was higher than we expected, and that's a kind of a year lag. But when I go back and get back to your question on the energy, what I think our opportunity is here. We are in this situation because of a crisis in Europe, but we are an energy-rich country, and we've allowed ourselves to become vulnerable in a sector that's so important to our survival and so important to our NATO allies. So I've been trying to push the bigger conversation and say, yeah, you wanted to have an increase in fossil fuel prices to reduce consumption. The 30 cents a litre, which would have been the carbon tax, we've already achieved that through the inflationary prices right now. That's why the pause was suggested. But there isn't any appetite to do that. But the appetite's got to come with, what is the big picture here? Because how long are we going to buy our energy from let's say, unstable, to use it kindly, countries, while we're sitting on resources of our own? Why would we do that? And we can play a major role, not only for North America, but for Europe. And so let's really push that big conversation. And yes, if this gets out of hand, how can we mitigate this for consumers? Because we know the big issue, transportation, supplies to any business, it's just coming right down the line to the consumer. And inflation is something we haven't had in our province since probably the early 80s, maybe a bit in 2008. But this is unique for us. And so it comes with challenges. It comes with, we're seeing the investment and the excitement, but we have to learn how we manage it for the average citizen.
So another challenge that we're facing right now, and a barrier to growth in our economy right now, is availability of housing. we wonder if it could prevent the province from really reaching our economic potential. It's already at a crisis level in some communities. Now, last week's budget made changes to the property tax structure, but do you think it's going to be enough, especially considering that skyrocketing property assessments more than wipe out any gains from tax reduction?
Well, you can always look at that two ways. You can always say, wow, look what I would have been paying had we not done that. so
Okay.
you know, so I always like to look at the glass half full, so to speak. And in the what we did when we talked to a lot of, let's say, developers in the housing industry. So what are the big barriers to you? Of course, supply costs, the availability of labor is a big issue, but consistency or stabilization of taxes, because we've been talking about the double tax situation for a long time in our province. So we're really the first ones, and we started this in 2014, but then it got canceled in 16. So now we brought it back in a more aggressive formula of 50%. And you know, I hope to, if our province continues to grow the way it does, I hope we can carry on with that so that we can get to the full 100%. So what I would say to developers is that you have an opportunity right now, not only to see a security in the tax structure and a reduction going forward, so you're not being hit with inflation prices like you might have otherwise been, but the hope there is that'll go less, but your equity is greater now than it was in your buildings and such. And I've been talking to developers, you know, they said we need stability. These taxes by themselves in New Brunswick are high anyway, so if you don't address that, then regardless of what equity I have, these taxes are too high. So that was why we did this. And we're trying to do it in a way that we don't have to put more taxes on people working in our province.
So there has been conversation in the media that neither tenants nor landlords were overly happy with the budget last week. So what is the province also doing to work with municipalities to lower the taxes on their side and also to try and address those assessment issues? We have heard that there may be a revamp of the assessment process.
Well, it's we are looking at that as part of the municipal reform, the whole taxation structure in the municipalities. Now, some municipalities have reduced their tax levels, and they did that on their own because they saw the improvement in their assessments in their community. So some have done that, some haven't. We've done the balance, so we saw the improvement in our refunds too. So we've reduced the taxes. That's what helps move that bar. So basically, what we're trying to balance is, can we continue to provide the services and grow those services that people expect? Which now, given our hitting the 800,000 mark, and our services are going to be more in demand. So can we manage that, but at the same time not raising taxes to do so? So it's kind of that balance. And I think municipalities, when we go through that whole process, we are looking at where can we kind of change the structure, working with them to be more conducive to investment. We're seeing a lot of that, like even here in Fredericton, you're seeing lots of new construction. Mm-hmm. It's quite interesting to watch some of the places that are building up right now and thinking, wow, I never thought there's something would go there. And then you look at other cities are doing the same thing, Moncton and St. John as well. So we're seeing that investment because the demand's there. So we'll continue to work with municipalities and developers to say, what else do we need to do, keeping in mind that we do want to balance the process.
So I'll add to that question a little bit. Some landlords and developers are saying that it's been a bit unfairly presented that they're reaping a big benefit from the announced reductions in the double tax and commercial property rates with the expectation that they pass this on to the tenants. But because of the assessments, their bills will increase rather than decrease. So a question is, why did the government choose to cap rent increases but did not choose to cap property assessments?
Well, because we chose to say if we continue the tax reduction, and we basically are looking how do we all stay whole here in some ways, how do we balance it so, because what really drove a lot of the cap on this, and the discussion with developers too, we'll follow CPI, and there's kind of where it lay out. It wasn't like, well, that won't work. It was like, okay, well, we understand why you do that. But the issue became not so much new builds, but it became low-income housing or housing that all of a sudden got purchased. Now had a capital cost to try to balance in the rent, but a huge change, mm-hmm. and a lot of people just caught in the middle of that. Mm-hmm. So what we had to react to was, okay, nothing can change dramatically like that. We have to protect the tenants. We have to protect the construction to build new housing. So we thought we struck a balance. And I know I was criticized for making a comment that if the tenants weren't happy and the developers weren't happy, then I must have struck the right balance. I've kind of learned that it's difficult to strike the right balance. But I generally think that people should see directionally we are moving in a way to encourage people to invest in our province. And that's the goal. And I'm trying to do it by being cognizant of what our province can manage realistically.
So something that we've been made aware of, there's a lot of pressure on supply chains. There's pressure with labor availability, inflation, on top of those tax issues. And we've already heard that it's made construction uncompetitive. One area that we think government could help is prompt payment legislation. In fact, by the end of this year, New Brunswick will be the only province without prompt payment legislation. And that would ensure that contractors are paid on time by their private and public clients. The Legislative Services Branch of the Office of the Attorney General recommended we adopt a system similar to Ontario. The Construction Association has communicated with government that they would like this as well. In fact, we've sent letters to government and advocated for this also. When can we expect to see this happen?
This year.
Alrighty then. Okay, this year.
We are absolutely looking at doing that, and it's the right thing to do.
Okay, so in 2022, we will have prompt payment legislation.
But it should be introduced either this spring or next fall.
Okay, thank you. So let's say we get housing lined up, then we have to find employees to fill those vacancies. And so workforce is an issue. So let's talk a bit about immigration. So you recently said that you'd like to see us reach 1 million by 2040. And if we're going to reach that, we need to ramp up even more our attraction and retention. And it's complex. And through working with newcomers over the years, which our chamber and many chambers have done, we've learned that one of the biggest barriers to retaining them is good communication with government and just the challenge of navigating the system. We've recommended to government that there be an immigration ombud position that could advocate for newcomers within government. Is that something you would consider? And is the new Navigator program you announced a step towards that?
Well, I would say the Navigator program that we put in place over the last couple of years would indicate there isn't a requirement to have a further position in place. That has worked well, and we've had very, very strong acceptance and positive comments and surveys that would say that it's in the 90s, 95, 97%. Satisfied with that reaction. And the goal was always about navigating people through departments and not have departments pass it on and pass it on. So that is the focus for us. And I know in the immigration, it's the same thing of trying to work with businesses and say, okay, what do you need? What skill set? Just recently, I was with my colleagues in Atlantic Canada, and we were talking about joint efforts in relation to immigration. And so we're all fighting for more healthcare workers. Mm-hmm. So it comes down to, okay, in that world, you look at, okay, what's our per capita? What about doctors? And you say, okay, what can we do differently? How do we manage this? Because we're all challenged by having the labor requirements. But then in other trades, what can we replace with MBCC? We've done the investments with the universities on nurses, and that's paying dividends. We really went after that in 2018, and now we're seeing it. I think it's like 200 a year that are graduating, or we're getting up there that in that range. It's ramping up every year. But in the other areas of businesses and connecting skill sets, and then going after working with the federal government. Right today, we have about a backlog of 2,500 that are locked up in the federal government process. Mm-hmm. The Atlantic Pilot Program is helpful, and that is now permanent. And so we're collectively working with our counterparts, not in a competitive way, but in maybe a per capita way. That's okay. We've got 300 people coming in, and 100 of them are here, and 50 are here, and so we're all kind of raising the boats of Atlantic Canada. But there's really an effort, but the process is difficult. And I've recently done a comparison of what do other provinces require for barriers to clear the hurdles. And I've identified a lot of barriers that New Brunswick has that other provinces don't, particularly other Atlantic provinces.
So one thing we've heard from a lot of newcomers, if we want to really help with retention as well, is that we could reintroduce a family reunification stream. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. So when you're immigrating, so if I understand the question properly, so if you move people into a community, you're bringing a family to a community, and then that family has another family, and you kind of have a program there, and because that has been the biggest challenge we've had with people staying in our province, is that they don't have family members that they can actually associate with. So I'm absolutely supportive of that. And we're seeing some of that. I think we see that with some companies, whether it be Groupe Savoie, whether it be Irving and Chipman. I think they're doing more of that. Housing comes into play with that because, again, you're trying to balance out having a place for people to stay when they get here. But if they have a long part-time job, and if they're in a home and get settled, they're apt to stay.
So we're actually exploring having a stream that is for family reunification?
It's part of it, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then of course, what does this crisis in Ukraine bring? We're again working with our Atlantic colleagues in terms of set up an office to help the situation, because it's just shocking to see what's happening in Europe. And I guess where can we help? Either temporarily to relocate people or permanently. But we've certainly got our hand up in support of helping Ukrainians come here. And we've had our first family, I think, about a week ago.
That's excellent, yes.
So it is exciting, but devastating at the same time of what they're going through.
One of the things that we've heard in our annual survey of our members is that about 85% of them told us that they haven't used immigration streams as a means of finding solutions to their skills shortage because they find it complex or they think it is complex. Given that some of that is federally government related, what can we do here in the province just to make it easier, less intimidating, more appealing for employers? You talked about looking at other jurisdictions, but is there an actual process in place that we're going to do to make it easier?
So I asked a question a few months ago of kind of different economic councils that were looking, okay, what are the barriers? I said, give me a list of the barriers to success. I like to work on lists. That must be the engineering thing, right? I like okay, who's responsible for this? What's the issue, and who's going to fix it? And I got 13 items that were based on differences between us and neighboring provinces in terms of getting people here. How quickly we got people here, what hoops we didn't have the same level of cooperation maybe with our intergovernmental affairs and then the federal government, and so there's not this solid link. But having said all that, our numbers are higher than they've ever been for immigration over this last year or 2 years. So there's a lot of activity, but I want to make it even easier for people to come here and not skip over our website if they're searching because of some little nuance that says, well, you can't come. And we have challenges in that regard like everyone else, but we need to find a way to remove the barriers, and then if we have to have additional training once they're here, that's fine. But don't block people right out of the gate. If they're skilled and able to be here and contribute, then let's find a way to get them here. That's kind of my goal, because I find that many times people can say, oh, well, they don't fit this model. Well, but then, and I know of a company that had a driver, and I don't recall where the driver was from, been here for 3 years, and had spent 3 years trying to write the English language exam. And they're all to the point where they were going to be deported, like they couldn't pass and the company said, and they were a smaller company, maybe 5 or 6 trucks, and they said, this is one of the best drivers we have. And he's been driving now for 3 years. He's fine. We don't want to lose him. So if the company is managing that and working with the individual and they're delivering and doing everything they need to do, surely we can find a way.
Remove that roadblock.
Exactly.
Yeah. So also in the area of skills development, this year's budget talked a lot about the nursing shortage, funding more seats, and there's been other programs in that regard. What are other areas of critical need where you think government could play a similarly active role, like perhaps trade or construction?
Well, I guess in the case of allowing people to come in, maybe more than needed to work on specific projects that have the skill set, and you could look at that. Let's use several of the modular home operators here or companies in the province. And a carpenter could be a carpenter coming from that's familiar with building homes and such. And if we found ways, and I mean, recently talking to one, they're short 29 people. They've always seemed to be short people because they just can't get enough. But if you say, here's a skill set, I could go into a community and I could get a number of carpenters that are skilled in building homes or doing this. Can we bring them in as a group? And can we bring them in on a term, whether it's a temporary foreign worker or whether it's a prelude to a longer term, but really bring in that skill set so they're ready to hit the ground running. And again, it goes back to what barriers are preventing us from doing that. So there comes and I'd like to hear from the Chamber, I'd like to hear from people that are really looking for removal of obstacles and giving us that assignment. Because I really like to know the facts about that and find a reason of why we can't do it differently or do it differently.
I did mention briefly the nursing funding, and I want to ask you just a quick question, but given that we are short-staffed in terms of nursing, with these new seats, who will do the clinical work with these students?
Well, I guess, it comes down to, you look across the network in New Brunswick, and you try to figure out how short-staffed we are. You look across the doctors, and we're about the same level. Our doctors per capita we have one of the highest in the country. So then you kind of look at, okay, how are we managing these resources so that, we don't duplicate efforts, but we actually can say, okay, we can provide this service and do it properly and effectively, but we don't need to do it everywhere the same. And how do we specialize in some communities anywhere? And I'll use an example of that. We started the hip and knee surgery and kind of got derailed a little bit with COVID, but in St. Joe's. And it was going great grounds. We were reducing wait times of 2 years down to 6 months. And we're getting back on that. But where else can we do that same thing? So in other words, you say, okay, you can wait 2 years, but you know what? You could go here and get it done in 2 weeks. And so we're trying to, and that was a conversation we had, again, with my colleagues in the other premiers in Atlantic Canada, is that, we do things like with the IWK now. It's not a debate. If we want to go to a children's hospital, we do it with the IWK. We could say with oncology, with heart surgery, with others, particular assets, can we focus on this collectively so we can utilize better the resources we have? OR rooms, there's lots of them that are closed, not running in overnight or the weekends, and there would be doctors that would do that longer hours or go somewhere just because to get OR time. Can we bring in people to do just that and focus on it? So it's trying to be innovative about healthcare delivery, because getting more people is not going to be easy. Getting more nurses from countries that have the same kind of certifications that we do, we can't wait 2 years to have them certified in New Brunswick. And that's a current obstacle to get people in and certified. And so if their program, and they've been a nurse for several years in a country that has a similar program to ours, we need to find a way to expedite them getting right into the system. Because today they'll spend 2 years maybe working in a nursing home, maybe working somewhere else before they can actually get to a hospital.
So at last year's State of the Province, you said we were on track to cut the wait list for primary care in half by March, and that didn't happen. What are the expectations for access to primary care? And in addition to that, the free access to the e-health program, we understand is scheduled to end at the end of April. How does that work into it?
Well, the current health program that we have put together about a month ago now and released, it lays out a number of, initiatives that would be unique. So I'll use, if I use ER time and say, okay, so now we're using the capabilities of paramedics, advanced care paramedics, so they can make decisions right on the spot. Whether you need to go to the ER, whether you don't, and that's happening. Physicians or pharmacists are able to make more use now of actually prescriptions, and so we're ramping up what they can do. The other aspect of nurse practitioners. So we've introduced those. We're setting up health clinics now because the young doctors don't want to have their own practice. They want to work in a clinic. They want to have better hours. So we're doing that. We're doing it in areas. We have some prototypes now that are in existence. And we're developing that. So I think that what we're seeing in the health plan are a number of different ways to deliver healthcare, including the virtual healthcare, and then trying to provide that triage that says, okay, we're getting it where you need it to be at the time you need it. And so I'm optimistic that this time we got sidetracked a bit with more than a bit with COVID, but I do feel we have a plan, and what it comes down to is management of the plan. And people, you know, we have a high absenteeism rate. I think right now about 660, you know, healthcare workers that are off the job. Now, that to a degree is related to COVID and having a tracing of COVID and such, and we have to manage through that. But at the end of the day, we have to find a way that people can, you know, should be able to come to work, but also have a work-life balance, that people aren't saying, well, I want you to work 24 hours. No one should be asked to work 24 hours. And healthcare workers, we're seeing that. And of course, again, in the health field, they're pretty tired from what they've gone through in the last 2 years. And
They've done so much.
they have. And none of us can overstate the contribution they've made day in and day out. We just can't have them give up because we need them, and they need to have a lifestyle. And we're working through that. And the more people that give up, the more people that have to work more to try to make up. So nursing profession is an honorable profession that we need desperately. And we need to find ways that people enjoy coming to work and serving the patients that they got into doing. That's why they started nursing to begin with. I have a nurse in my family.
I want to talk, just before we finish, about some opportunities. I want to ask you, the courthouse project in Fredericton is moving forward, so is the government going to provide funding for the planned adjacent Performing Arts Centre?
Well, we haven't had a lot of discussion on that of late. So I'm sure there will be more debate on it, but I don't, you wouldn't expect me to say yes or no right here, would you?
I was hoping you might.
Yes.
I thought that
was
would
this
be
supposed to be announcement night? Was that it? Is that it?
I also want to talk a little bit about cybersecurity. It is, as we know, one of the fastest growing industries in the world, and you know, we have been poised to take advantage of. The groundwork is there. But recently we had CyberNB close, and I'm interested in your thoughts on that, what you think, if it will have a negative impact on the industry, the optics. And this week we had a lot of news about the Digital Skills for Youth program. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
I am actually excited about what I'm learning from UNB and the programs that are in place, the McKenna Institute that's being, you know, kind of getting underway, and the opportunities for cybersecurity and continuing that momentum. And that can't be, you know, displaced at all by a building, so to speak, in the cyber program in that regard, because the two are kind of separate. But we are working with the UNB, and we are working with the Knowledge Park in order to understand what is the right program going forward. And I think the right program going forward is very much connected with the vision that UNB has to develop our capabilities. And I'll speak, you know, I'll learn more about it as time goes on, but I think cybersecurity and the evolution of that in our city is strong and vibrant and moving forward. And there are no negative impacts here that slow that down.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you one last question. Do you see any other emerging sectors where you think New Brunswick could be a global leader?
We are working hard on, you know, renewable energy. Certainly the small nuclear reactors are something that we're focused on because it is a viable solution to the world energy demands. And it needs to be, you know, clear that these are very different than the CANDU reactors and the typical nuclear generation, which we are only one of two provinces that have that capability in the country. The small nuclear reactors can provide a mobile, basically, source of energy anywhere in the world, built right here in New Brunswick. But the operation of these are very different, and people need to understand, and some even use spent fuel. So it can be very, very good for the climate change, but can be very good for us as an industry. The other aspect of all this is transitioning, and I spoke a bit earlier about this whole idea of us having an energy-rich country, and there being a threat right now to our civilization, really, in many ways, in terms of other countries that are threatening it, that are very volatile, to say the least. I believe that we need to find this formula of transition. So, you know, we have companies now interested certainly to look at the green hydrogen technology, blue hydrogen technology, looking at where we can invest to supply resources to Europe that we already have here, so developing those. I just think there's room for that big conversation. So those are two energy sector files that are very, very important for us, and that I think that are important to the world too, and Canada. And in what we're seeing elsewhere is certainly, as we talk about with innovation industry, to be more worldwide in their reach.
So just before we close out this evening's program, I'll give you a chance for the final word. What would your final word be this evening?
It's always an honor to have the final word, Krista. And I just want to say thank you again for this evening, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's been difficult not being able to participate in real time, that we weren't able in the last couple of years. So it's an honor to be part of it. It's an honor to be. I've said that this time being Premier it's been difficult, but it's been an honor to be part of a province that's coming through a worldwide pandemic, stronger, better, and more vibrant than it's been in generations. And when you think of that, how did we get here? We got here because the people of this province decided that we can work together, we can find innovative ways to protect each other, and we no longer have to be a province that people say, well, what's this about New Brunswick? I mean, I remember statements in the past that would say, well, whatever New Brunswick's doing the opposite. And then I saw an article about 6 months ago that said, suddenly the have-not province has it all. And now we're seeing unprecedented movement into our province and into our region. And you can argue maybe COVID played a role in that, not only because we became recognized for what we did with our counterparts across the country, but also because people are saying, wow, I'd really like to live in a place that has a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. It's New Brunswick.
Well, thank you very much, Premier Higgs, for delivering the 48th Annual State of the Province Address. We appreciate the time you took with us this evening and the time to answer questions here in our post-interview. We also want to thank your team, and by team I mean those elected officials that you work closely with, but also the civil service and the healthcare professionals that have really supported this province over the last 2 years. And we're very glad to have had an opportunity to have a live and in-person event again this year. And I also want to say thank you this evening to our viewers who have joined us at home and those who joined us live at the Fredericton Convention Centre for the 48th Annual Fredericton Chamber of Commerce State of the Province Address. We want to thank our MC, Marshall, for doing a great job as always. We want to thank our sponsors who stand by us and support this organization and this event over the years, and especially to our platinum sponsor, Siemens. So thanks very much and good evening.